Welcome to the Millennial Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Moore. I'm speaking today with Ethan Barrett, editor, animator, and filmmaker, most well known for his short film Rosemary A.D. After Dad. Great to have you on today, Ethan.
Hey, Michael. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to be able to chat. So, I wanted to get started for the audience on how you got started in the early part of your career, starting creatively in your life.
That's a good question. Let's see, I grew up in Kansas in a really small town, very rural environment. And for me, there was no being creative is maybe something that's there's maybe community theater or something, but it's not really a career aspiration. And other than my grandma painted, other than that, I didn't hear of anyone being creative beyond a hobby. And usually even then it was just children. Oh, you go teach children drawing and stuff like that. But it wasn't really I had no idea that you could do anything creative beyond elementary school, basically. And but as a kid, I love movies, and I was just so enraptured, honestly, as a child. All I wanted to do was go to the movies, and whenever friends came over, I wanted to watch movies with them, or I'd tell them which movie from their collection to bring. And one of my friends had a long time ago in the 90s, there's something called Tyco Video Cam, and it was sort of like a kid's way of, you had to connect it directly to the TV, so you're pretty limited in where you could go. And it only shot in black and white, but also I'd always tell my friend to bring the video cam, and then we'd always make movies together. And this was just something that I did for fun. I would draw comics of my own, or little posters and stuff. It was always funny. I was always trying to be funny, trying to make people laugh, just being a goofball. But like I said, I saw no career aspirations in it. And I also love piano. So if I wasn't making movies or drawing, I'd probably be playing piano. Those were my biggest interests. But my parents, I think most parents, I don't hold this against them. They didn't see piano or film as a career. They're like, all right, that's just your hobby. You can do that on the side, but you got to do something real. And I was a huge people pleaser. So I was a third of 5 kids, middle child syndrome. So I was just, okay, I'll do something to make them happy. So they said, oh, you should be an engineer. You should go into something, that makes a lot of money. But in my mind, I always wanted to do something that seemed different or interesting. So I went to pilot school to fly airplanes. I did that for 1 semester, and I was so bored. Once I got up in the airplane, it's not. People do say, "Oh, the plane just flies itself. It's not that hard." It's actually not like that at all. It's when you're driving a car, the car kind of does drive itself. When you're flying an airplane, you're not there's no road. If you're driving a car, you're not going to accidentally be off the road for 30 miles. But easily, if you're 30 minutes not paying attention to what you're doing in an airplane, you can be completely away from where you are in multiple dimensions. But that was digression. But basically, I just got so bored. It was too technical for me, and I didn't really enjoy it. I couldn't see myself doing it for life. And so I just kind of wandered. I took time off and traveled the world for 2 years. And, then I came back, went to college, and I remember I was going to college for international studies at Baylor University in Texas, and thought, well, I've been overseas, so I'll do international studies. Maybe I'll be a diplomat or something someday. And I remember picking out my books at the bookstore and seeing these other people who are picking out film theory books and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, hey, what are those books for? It's kind of history class or something. They say, oh no, we're film majors. I'm like, film major? Wow. So I just went back straight. You just go online and click, majors. So I just added film majors and add the recs. And honestly, the classes were such a breeze, so easy. You're just learning about movies. It's all the stuff I would do in my spare time. And you get technical knowledge. You get to hang out with other friends making stuff. So I was in heaven. And after graduating college, I spent my last semester as a sort of study abroad thing in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it in New York City. I stayed there another couple of months after, but then everyone in New York said, if you want to be a writer, which was kind of what I was focusing on, because I was like, I need to focus on something. What do I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the person who makes a thing, but I always loved writing, so I was like, okay, I'll be a writer. And then everyone said, well, you got to move to LA if you want to be a writer. So I think it was fall 2012, I moved to LA, and just sort of started hustling, grinding, working every job you can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intense. There's a lot of competition. Everyone moves to LA to be a writer. I remember even just to like get a job like flipping burgers or something, you have to like lie on your resume and say you have like 10 years food experience. Like there's that much competition because everyone
Mm-hmm.
else has the same idea. I'll just be a barista and
Mm-hmm.
write my scripts, and it's tough. It's a lot of competition, but
Yeah.
and so eventually after like a year or two of hustling, I got a job as a page at NBC. Like, I like to say Kenneth from 30 Rock, with the
Yeah.
suit and everything, giving tours and just being very, enthusiastic and cheerful about NBC and all the products that Comcast had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And so after doing that for about 6 months, I got my first um, Hollywood job, I guess, big Hollywood job as a writer's production assistant on a show called Heroes Reborn. It was a reboot of the Heroes show. And then I got a few more writer's production assistant jobs after that. And after doing that, kind of had the same feeling after being at pilot school. But I was like, man, I'm doing like, for a lot of people, this is kind of like a dream job, I could,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, it just felt something wrong. Something was wrong. Something was off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say. Once you get that feeling, it's like Inception. Once the idea is there, you can't shake it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I need, this bird needs to fly, And so a friend hired me on to be an assistant director for live productions for a while for video games, esports. And so I did that for a year or two, making a lot more money than I'd ever made as a writer's assistant. And, once you have that kind of cushy job and you're working with your friends, it's hard to stop. And so I did that for a couple of years until I got married, and we finally moved away from LA to Austin, Texas, where I lived for 5 years. And there I just got to take a lot more time. I mean, the pandemic hit basically right when we moved there. So it was insane timing. And I just took more time to just work on my own things for a little while. I made some like animated shorts and, then we had a kid, surprisingly, or miraculously, I guess I should say. And from that stemmed Rosemary A.D., which was my the biggest thing I ever made. So, and that's how we met. Because he came to a screening of the film.
Yeah, yeah. We met at the Vimeo staff pick here in Austin, Texas screening. I'm glad you could come out for that. Really appreciate the time. So wanted to looking at the different elements, so you were working in LA, you were working in the industry. Why don't you, let's dive a little deeper. You're working on a live television production, and you're making that decision of like, I want to do more stuff of my own. I want to do my own projects, and you're getting married, so walk me through kind of your thinking and your process there. Like, where were you at?
At which point?
Specifically in Los Angeles, you're working for the live television production, and you're making that decision to move.
Okay, yeah. So we were getting married, and I was, we were working in the live esports. And like I said, I was getting paid good money, working with my friends. In many ways, another dream scenario, but my dreams were still there, my ambitions. And I think I just needed a change at that time. And I thought, there's filmmakers in Austin. I can go do that there, because I always wanted to make my own thing.
Yeah.
Something that was, about living in LA. I just spent all my time writing spec scripts,
Mm-hmm.
spec TV shows, things that will never get made. And it just felt like
Mm-hmm.
such a waste of time. Like I want to write something that will get made, even if it's lo-fi, even if it's, junk. It's better to write something that gets made than just write something that sits on my own shelf, for life.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and so you make the move over. You get married, you have your first kid, and COVID hits, and talk me through writing your short film, Rosemary A.D.
Yeah, I think after moving to Austin,
Mm-hmm.
and instead of working for jobs that I was full of pride. Because before I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, my job was so awesome in LA, and then in Austin, I felt kind of a lot of the jobs were much the same that I was trying to apply for, and so
Yeah.
God, I'm in the same situation again,
Mm-hmm.
and then the pandemic hits, and so making new friends kind of ended right there. So like it felt like progress that I'd made and connections with people
Mm-hmm.
and films that were going to be made were just like dead in the water, as it was. A lot of people can relate, have been through the same thing. So after that, and then I think we found out a few months into the pandemic that we were pregnant, which just like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was not ready for that. But I did some soul searching, and what really came out of the film was like, I had a lifetime struggle with depression, and it just kind of hit
Mm-hmm.
me like, is it wrong to make, as someone who grew up with a parent who had mental issues of their own,
Mm-hmm.
and that stunk. I was like, is it better for like, is it cruel for me to make her grow up with that father like me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what Rosemary A.D. was about. So I really thought about that. And then I decided, okay, I was okay with my life changing. And it's like, I'm going to be a dad now. That's fine. I came to terms with that. But then really when she was born, I thought like maybe her life would be better without me. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in like February 2021 was when Austin was hit by a huge ice storm,
Mm-hmm.
and power went out in basically the entire city except for the rich parts. So our house was out without power for a couple of days. We went to our in-laws
Mm-hmm.
who have a generator, and so we went to stay with them. And just during that time, I couldn't do any work. I couldn't do anything. So I just had to just
Mm-hmm.
sit there with the baby. And I just sort of journaled all this stuff out. And it was kind of like
Mm-hmm.
more convoluted than it ended up in the film. But I thought after journaling all these things, like basically I imagined, okay, if I commit suicide or sewer slide or whatever, I don't know, get to
Mm-hmm.
bleep it out. Apparently that's what they do on the internet now. But if I were to shuffle off this mortal coil,
Mm-hmm.
would how could Rosemary's life end up? So I kind of researched
Mm-hmm.
it and stuff and saw, oh, what happens to kids whose parents, in their lives. And I was hoping to see like positive stories about how people overcame adversity and things like that, but it was
Mm-hmm.
mostly just really bad negative stories. And so that's kind of how the film was birthed. I just thought it was an interesting idea and a way for me to sort of process um, all these thoughts that I was having.
Mm-hmm.
Because also at the same time, I was just working less and less in film and just kind of coming to a point where it's like, maybe I'm just like a normal guy now. Maybe I'm not like, in my mind, I was always like a step or two away from being Spielberg or Hitchcock or something. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost there, and then now it's like, I'm going the other way. And it seems like, well, this is just never going to happen for me now. And so maybe I should just like
Mm-hmm.
become a normal father type person and just work like a job, be
Mm-hmm.
just like a normal person. And so the film is just processing all of that.
Yeah. And so the film for those who've seen it, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend, watching it. The link will be in the show notes to it on Vimeo. But wanted to, focus on the art style, and some would describe it as kind of a scrappy art style, or like a coloring book kind of art style. What, what led to that particular art style for you, and how did you manage kind of the different systems? Like, how did you find your way through animating for the first time?
I think, yeah, it was my first time really doing any kind of hand-drawn animation.
Hmm.
I had done some stop motion things before, but I'd never done actual, like 2D animation. The art style, I think it's just like the limit of my skill. Like
Hmm.
what's what they call unconscious incompetence. I just
Hmm.
thought, well, what's something I can do? And I always drew like, it sort of hit me in my mind, oh, I can draw and it can be however I want it to look.
Hmm.
So from the beginning stages, even though I should have done more planning, I don't think I did. I just thought, okay, I'll just draw it like in these really simple stick figures.
Hmm.
And that's kind of as deep as it went. I chose to use crayons because I'd done some things with crayons before. I thought, oh, that looks interesting, and it seemed unique.
Hmm.
But I'm sure there's something psychological in there, and people have told me, oh, that's really interesting how like the theme goes with the crayons and things like that. So I guess it does.
Hmm.
Yeah, it just maybe it was unconscious at the time. I just thought, what can I go to the store and buy readily again? What's a
Yeah.
cheap way that anybody can just go to the store and buy like 30 crayon or 30 things of this, instead of like some pastels or something like that. I just chose
It's
crayons.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic, it's a great way to approach art, especially in the beginning, because it's always about, okay, how can I lower the hurdles for myself as much as possible so that I do the art, rather than focusing on the tools to such an extent that you don't do the art. You're like, oh, well, I don't have this tool or I don't have these things. Instead, just get out there, get what you can afford, get what you can get your hands on, and just do the creating.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's perfect. Exactly right.
Yeah, and so walk through. So you start to animate these things hand drawn in crayon. You take photos of them, and then what did the workflow look like for you to get that into movement on the screen digitally?
Yeah, so basically I would draw the thing,
Hmm.
draw whatever, pick a Rosemary walking frame
Hmm.
by frame. And I have basically a backlight so you can trace it. So I just lay one paper on top of the other and just like frame
Hmm.
by frame go for it. And
Hmm.
then once I have all those frames done, this, well, just this behind me is an actual like animation rig that I built
Hmm.
after I did Rosemary A.D. So I did not have this at the time. So I won't. All I did was take a tripod,
Hmm.
um, and sort of pointed it down, and just lay the pictures down in front of it, and just took one picture at a time. And then I took all of those and dropped it into the editing software just in order.
Hmm.
And there's that. There's your video. And, it's like make a nested sequence or whatever, and you can just watch. It's just a video at that point.
Hmm.
If a character is standing still, I would draw it 4 times so that if they're staying there, it kind of gives that looping effect. What else would I do? And then yeah, just added all the audio, um, music. So I did all the audio and music myself as well. So
Hmm. And what was the editing software that you used?
I used Adobe Photoshop and then Premiere.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. So yeah, again, focusing on the straightforward tools, being able to get it done and get it out there. And from start to finish, how long did it take you to, so you wrote out the kind of the overall script or the scope of the project. You did the animation, you did yourself and family members recording the audio, including your
Yeah,
daughter Rosemary, and you know how long from start to finish would you say the project, took?
it was about 8 months. I
Hmm.
think most of the drawing took about 4 months, and there was
Hmm.
a couple months after that was just recording the voices, recording the sound,
Hmm.
making a list of all the sound effects I needed, and kind of coming up with what I wanted to do for the music, and then
Hmm.
making when I listen to it now, I was like, I some parts are way too hot. like the audio and
Hmm.
stuff. It can peak, kind of peaks in the cinema a little bit, but I like truly I knew nothing about any of that.
Yeah.
You never imagine people are actually going to watch it like in a theater. At my level, you never imagine that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
um, so next time I would have worked harder on that.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that also speaks to kind of the realities of getting it done, is that it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. You kind of pick a point where you feel the project's done, you walk away. And so you did, 4 months of production, 4 months of post-production, and, it was done. You put it out there in the world, and it's gotten, great, it's resonated very strongly over the past 3 years, I would say. And, so what would you say was kind of, you've put it out there in the world. Walk us through kind of how that started to be seen, both publicly on the internet and then also in private screenings and film festivals. Walk us through kind of the path of the work post launch.
Oh, like once I finished it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know anybody at that point.
Hmm.
I mean, I knew people in Hollywood and stuff, but I didn't know anyone at festivals or anything. So I was just blind submitting it to festivals, which everyone tells you is not a good strategy. But what was that? What are we supposed to do if you don't know anybody? And if you live where a festival is, you're lucky.
Hmm.
But a lot of us don't. So what are you supposed to do?
Hmm.
So I just blind submitted to festivals. It was probably like a year of rejections. You start off like, Sundance, here I come, or
Hmm.
Cannes, here I come. But I know I was very, very lucky that eventually, once like the first acceptance came in, they just started sort of the festival acceptance just started like coming in like crazy. Like
Hmm.
it premiered in the UK at the London Film Festival, which was insane. It was really I'd had something at festivals before, but it was my first time, at a big festival, and just to be there in a giant crowd and seeing it on the big
Hmm.
screen, it was just a crazy feeling. And yeah, and then after that, it was just tons of festivals and getting to travel from place to place and all over the world, and it was sort of just a year straight of like festival runs and meeting new people, amazing people. Like I said, I was new to animation, but going to
Hmm.
animation festivals and meeting animation people was such an amazing experience, because I just found, even though I'm such a newbie, everyone was so encouraging and extremely humble, and inviting, accepting. And so, yeah, it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah. And so throughout that, you're meeting a lot of different people, you're traveling, how are you, balancing that with kind of your personal life? So you have a brand new baby, you have, kind of the personal career elements as well, I believe, as an editor. And so
Right.
how did you balance all of that in terms of that year of film festivals?
That year, so work-wise, it wasn't too bad. I was editing, so I
Hmm.
could always just go to the hotel and work.
Hmm.
Just bring the laptop and just work online. Sometimes the time differences could be a bit awkward, but I would just let
Hmm.
people know I'm out of the country or out of town right now, so time zone is different. For a family, that was kind of tough, being gone a lot of the time, being away sometimes a week. But I thought, like, this is never going to happen again, so I got to live it up while I can. That was kind of our mentality. My wife was very supportive. She said, just go.
Yeah.
And luckily, I was living in Austin at the time, and we had,
Hmm.
my wife's parents lived there as well, so like they could always watch her, take care of her while they could. So she had help. It is tough to leave the family though. And money wise, like, I had some winnings from the film, so whatever I won from the film, I would always
Hmm.
just like put back in, say, travel or something. And some festivals will fly you out, but that can be
Hmm.
another big burden, is going out to a festival. If you're flying out, you're staying at a a hotel or Airbnb, sometimes it can
Mm-hmm.
rack up like $1,000, just
Mm-hmm.
a few days just to go out to a festival. So short filmmakers, it's not easy. Even if you do get in, the dream does come true and you get into like an amazing festival, finances could be also prohibitive. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not easy, but like I said, I thought it was never going to happen again. So so I better go to every single one. I didn't go to every single one. I went to like
Mm-hmm.
maybe 5 or 6, but
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And also looking at your filmography, you've had some successes as an editor as well, and so I believe music video editing. So walk us through how kind of you got into that path of your career.
I think I've done a few music videos, but mostly what I've done is for real money, for actual job money, because I've done a
Hmm.
lot of favors for people. But that's the best way to get started, is because eventually
Hmm.
those people you help out that are at your level will get jobs and refer you.
Hmm.
Um, Most of like what I did in like my career was in the esports world.
Hmm.
Um, I, I was just hired by a friend to start working to edit sort of esports footage
Hmm.
and player interviews, that sort of thing. And that went on for a few years. It was an awesome experience. And occasionally, like, people still want me to edit, but now I just mostly edit my own projects.
Yeah. So you do the esports and the different
Yeah,
elements. So for esports, that's your day job. You go on all these trips to different places for filmmaking, and then you guys decide to make the move to New Orleans. So what led
yeah,
to that decision?
yeah. That was very much like a family decision.
Hmm.
It wasn't really based on me or my career. I can do what I do from anywhere,
Hmm.
basically. But my wife, for her career, she was looking for a change. So we kind of looked at a lot of different places, and she found the right job that fits her here. It was tough to leave Austin, for sure. It's tough to
Hmm.
leave the family we had there, and no matter what age a kid is, it's tough for them for the change. And I think she was like 3 at the time we moved, and I think she's she's thriving now. But I think the first couple months, you can definitely like tell how, even at that young of an age, like, you can tell how these things affect children. So that was kind of tough, but it's been right. And now we live in New Orleans, so.
Yeah. So in being in New Orleans, what are some of the things you appreciate with your new homesake?
I mean, New Orleans is a lot. Things move a lot slower here.
Hmm.
The traffic is not really that big of an issue, especially compared to Austin or Los Angeles. So a lot of things are a lot calmer. The food is amazing. Not not easy on your waistline, but it's a lot of filmmakers here. So even though like not as much stuff is shooting in the U.S.
Hmm.
in general, a lot of the stuff in Louisiana has gone down, but I still find there are tons of filmmakers, and basically any kind of crew person you can need, they're here. So I feel like everything you need as an
Hmm.
artist is here. Just career wise, it's maybe not maybe super easy to make it. That I don't know, because I can work remotely. But I'm just so
Hmm.
impressed by the other filmmakers here, because they continue their passions. They continue making films all the time. Like, I've met so many people that are constantly working on short films, and whenever a feature does come through town, everyone's hustling to be a part of it. So it's a really cool community and very welcoming too. Not a
Hmm.
ton of people are always moving to New Orleans, so when someone new does move, um, I find them very welcoming. So it's been a good time here.
Nice, nice. And what would you say, kind of looking forward, what are some of the things that you're excited about, coming up?
Uh, for like my projects, or
Creatively, professionally, whatever floats your boat.
yeah, I've been working on the next short film for quite a while, like a year or 2 years now. And at the Rosemary A.D., that went by so fast. I thought, okay, I'll just make one of these a year. It's gonna be great. But then I really just like, man, that year that I took going to other festivals, I would just see the quality of the films everyone was making, and I thought I just got lucky this time. You know, something about this film resonated with people, and I don't think I can just keep doing the same thing. I have to really put more work into the details next time. And this film that I'm working on, it's been a big project, so it's taken a long time, and it's also hand drawn in a lot the same way, but I'm using pencil and it's just a lot more detail. No more crayons, but the whole thing is the same thing. Everything, just like Rosemary A.D., everything on the screen was something that I drew with my own hands. So.
Awesome. Well, that'll be a fun film once it comes out. So wishing you the best of luck in that. And then, looking at kind of, your time, you have 2 kids now, is that correct?
The next one is due in February. So.
Oh, wow. So you'll get, double duty time as a dad.
Totally. Yeah.
And, looking back at, you've traveled over a lot of different places. So looking back at all of those different locations, what would you say are some of the most interesting, and for what reason?
But before going to college, I spent like 7 months or so in Jordan.
Yeah.
And it's just such an amazing thing to be young and be in a place that's totally different. And in America, especially, you grow up with one perspective of the world, and especially growing up in Kansas, you get such a limited idea of viewpoints. And to go to somewhere so different, you can see that people are basically the same in other parts of the world in ways that we were told they were different, but also mindsets and like different points of view and different ways of seeing the world. So it was such an amazing experience to be in Jordan and just experience like real hospitality like we don't have in the U.S. And so I just fell in love with it, and ever since I've just always loved the people of the Middle East. And I was so lucky to get to go to the Cairo International Film Festival, and it was like going home in a way. Like a piece of me was missing, and when I got to Egypt, it was like suddenly it was full again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though people in Egypt might say that this is nothing like Jordan, but for me, the American.
Yeah, and also there's kind of cultural elements that can persist across different cultures, similar or distant, that are distinct from American culture, which can be very individualistic.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. America is very individualistic, and we have a way of seeing the world as like we're at the center of the universe, and everyone just sort of revolves around us. But imagine going to some place where America doesn't really cross their mind. So.
Yeah. And so, in terms of looking at all of those different things and looking at kind of your career moving forward with esports and other things, what are some things that you see that are interesting within the esports world?
The esports, it's cool because it's always growing. And it's cool. I love the community in the world of video games, and just the players. It's such a cool community, and it always is like very supportive. As is animation. I don't want anyone to see this, but I don't necessarily like see my career like staying there. Hopefully, it's paying the bills, but I enjoy it. It's a great community. Like I wouldn't be mad if I did it for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you do what you have to do to pay the bills, Absolutely. To be able to pursue greater creative efforts. I work in sales, so it's not necessarily aligned with making podcasts.
Totally. Okay.
It's just the reality of creative endeavors. I remember, I was interviewing Steve Grody a few weeks back, and he had a similar thing where he teaches classes on the side, and that's kind of his day-to-day career, but his real passion is his photography. And so that's how he finds a way to balance his career and those different elements. And it also allows him to explore different things because he'll try out different things throughout his career, on the kind of day-to-day pay the bills side. So
Yeah.
I found that
Yeah,
inspiring for
I
sure.
watched that interview. I really enjoyed it. I think what he said that I really liked was like, some people are good at art, but not at hustling.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are good at hustling, but not at the art. And some people are good at both. And it's like, man, I wish I can do the art, but the hustling, my mind just shuts off. And I'm just like, I'm done with this. I want to go back to, it's so hard to take time off from the
Mm-hmm.
art to do what you need to do. And you could honestly do like 90% hustle and 10% art, and I think you would do really well. But like,
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's I just need to spend even 10% of my time doing hustling because the art just takes up so much time.
Well, and I think making the types of decisions that you've made, with you're married, you have kind of a stable home life, and you guys have also chosen to live in areas that kind of have complementary cost of living. I know my wife and I chose to move to Austin, Texas because it was less expensive than the Bay Area where we were living. And so we're able to be more comfortable. We're able to make sure that we can balance out those different elements of our lives in a way that's much harder in coastal cities like the Bay Area or like Los Angeles. So I can definitely understand why you guys have made those moves, from that perspective.
Right.
So yeah, and overall, you had also mentioned in our initial conversation at the screening a few weeks ago, your kind of thoughts and concerns about AI, in terms of making art, especially in it being an animator.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. Even at that screening, I think at least I was kind of blown away because I think at least 3 people asked me, how did I use AI in my film?
Mm-hmm.
As if it's like just taken for granted that I used AI.
Yeah.
And not everyone has such a strong stance, but obviously a lot of creative people do. But I'm kind of with Guillermo del Toro on this one. Like, I would rather die than use AI.
Mm-hmm.
But then I know there are some people who spend, for them it's a creative output, and I'm not going to tell them what they're doing is not real, but sometimes I'm nervous to put anything on Instagram because I know they're just going to farm it for their AI engines, and you have to think about the fact that data centers are sucking up electricity, and those costs not go to the taxpayers, but also make the electricity costs rise in that area. It pollutes the water. It uses lots of water. It pollutes the environment. And it doesn't seem sustainable to me. And so I don't think it's an evil or anything like that. I just think I don't like the way it's been going. So hopefully the course gets corrected and it can turn to something that's more constructive, and the artists get compensated for their work, because the powers that be are always trying to look for ways to not pay the people that are doing all the work. And for artists, it's nothing new. It's the for the first time someone drew an art piece, someone thought, how can I sell that and not give any money to the artist? And it's nothing new. People always keep on creating. Sorry, I kind of went on a rant. What's the question you wanted to ask?
No, I think you followed along with it quite well in terms of just getting your feelings on the subject. And it's tough. The economics of creating is always tough because there's that innate desire to create from people who create. And so we will create whether we are whether we make money from it or not. And it's very easy to take advantage of that by folks who want to make money from creation. So it's always a bit of a balance in trying to find ways that, to navigate as an individual in that space, and then there's larger trends and larger changes that could occur, but that's a bit beyond the scope of this podcast.
Right. And to be clear, like the enemy, quote unquote, is not the person who's creating videos using AI. It's the companies that seem to be able to do whatever they want to do with no consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the part that needs to be corrected.
Yeah. There's a lot of things at a policy and
And it doesn't seem that hard
regulatory
to
level.
impose a policy, right?
Yeah. It's just about political will at a certain point. But so Ethan, where can folks find you online if they want to, follow your work, and see your work?
Yeah, probably the easiest way is to go on Instagram, Space Dog Film.
Mm-hmm.
It's at Space Dog Film. You'll see a little crayon astronaut dog there. Give me a follow, send me a message. Happy to write back to anyone who has anything to say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ethan. I really appreciated our conversation today and wishing you the best on your future endeavors. And hopefully we'll chat again soon.
Thank you, Michael.